as they did with the Benghazi situation, knowingly wrote talking points about global warming, lying to the people to scare people into submission and put them into a climate prison. I said, come on, it's not going to happen. It's a nice idea, climate prison. If I was not Michael Savage, it would be all over 15 different websites tomorrow. Savage says climate prison for the... But no, because I'm not one of the in-crowd in the cartel, in the special conservative cartel. If I don't say the word Constitution often enough, if I preceded every word I said with the Constitution, or talked about the Constitution often enough or something like that, perhaps you'd believe me. Anyway, that's the fact. Cheerio, everyone. Cheerio, non-stop to the truth. New non-stop flights to the truth on the Savage Nation. Okay, it's time to go to the calls. WJR, Rich, welcome to the Savage Nation from Detroit.
Thanks. Really glad to hear you talking about this. I am 72 years old, so I'm a retired scientist. I have 2 degrees in electrical engineering with other work in physics. I worked on nuclear weapons development at a place called Sandia Laboratories.
Oh, yes.
So I'm very knowledgeable about statistics and that kind of thing. And I get very angry, as you do, because you have a background in science, because these people have no clue, and here's how you can tell. You don't really understand science unless you take college-level courses that have laboratories in which to take part in
You're making me happy. You're right. They don't know the first thing about science, and yet they're talking about it as though it's proven science.
Here's the words they don't understand. Experimental error. Unless you've taken a course in understanding the experimental error in the experiments you do, you don't know what you're talking about. All this stuff is predicated on drilling ice samples out of the North Pole. And they get the little bubbles and they say, let's measure the carbon in there using carbon-14 dating to figure out how much carbon was there back in history. The experimental error on this is enormous.
It's interesting. You should. I want to talk about core drilling for a moment, because one of the most interesting pieces of evidence that I saw proving definitively that there have been fluctuations in temperature from the beginning of time is that ancient cores drilled from the bottom of the Antarctic have proven that we've had climate change going back millennia. Isn't that true?
True.
Absolutely true. Yeah. And by the way, I used to teach elementary science, and I taught the kids, as I said, the first rule of science is that there are no absolutes. Isn't that a good way to begin this discussion?
Absolutely. I mean, all of science, there is no such thing as settled science. It is an outrage.
Right, and for Obama to have gotten up and said the science is settled, and these ducks in the media go, quack, quack, science is settled, science is settled, science is settled, quack, quack. We're going to believe Nancy Pelosi as water runs out of her mouth as she sucks on a candy?
Right. But going back to the core samples that you're talking about, there was an article within the last 2 years in the New York Times. The New York Times reporters, when they get into the science, aren't bad. And this report said that, well, there's been experimental error in trying to figure out when the carbon dioxide reached the peak. And unfortunately, they said that the latest research shows that the CO2 buildup occurred after the warming, not before it.
Well, of course, the world we live in, as a side note, wouldn't be here, and we couldn't be fed were it not for global warming in the past, because this great proliferation of plant life occurred as a result of global warming. Isn't that correct, Doctor?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not a doctor. I only have master's degrees, but in a couple, you have to have cross areas. Yeah, think about it. Think about a tree. Think about an acorn or a little seed that falls out. How does a little acorn